Real quick before we get into the review, just gotta thank the people over on Patreon, because without their support, a lot of this upgraded content you see on the channel would not be possible. And I gotta say, on top of being able to respond to you guys in the DMs, you know, one of the fun things about the Patreon is every 3 months we do an anime and manga haul, and there's a lot of good goodies in that one. You also get sneak peeks at videos that haven't made their way onto the channel yet. I'm still figuring out what to do for actual YouTube memberships, so leave a suggestion down in the comment section below. But with that being said, thank you so much for all of you guys' support, and now let's get into the review. Yo, what's going on everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explained here, bringing you guys another review for Boruto episode 193. And now that episode 193 is done and in the books, we got a lot to talk about right here. And I gotta say, there were some changes that were made to this episode. I think I need to start with some of the stuff that's probably gonna be the most controversial. There were some changes made to the episode from the manga adaptation, and I've kind of already weighed in on Twitter, but I know a lot of you guys don't follow me over on Twitter, so I'm just going to give my brief thoughts on the changes that were made, then we'll go into the actual episode itself. And I think one thing we do need to actually discuss before getting into any of those changes is that new opening that they have with the new action sequences. I can say, I've been saying for a while, as have other people, what you're seeing in the opening isn't 100% clickbait. Some of the stuff you see in the opening actually takes place. I'm not gonna say which car members you're gonna see fighting in the near term, but you're gonna see a couple of those car members who are going back and forth with Ninja in the opening. You're gonna see them actually take place in battle. Now, the other thing that I will say is that there was a lot of controversy surrounding the fact that Naruto did not power up into his chakra mode when sitting at the dinner table with Kawaki, and a lot of people are disappointed on it. Hell, I myself was anticipating it. When I had the thumbnail made for this actual episode, I did so under the assumption that Naruto is going to power up in front of Kawaki and that Kawaki is basically going to piss himself. That didn't happen. However, I'm okay with it. I'm going to explain to you why. So essentially in the manga when this happened, Kawaki was just raging out and was flipping out over everything, being very hostile, flipped over the table and tried to run away. And once that happens, Naruto stands up and just powers up and basically tells Kawaki like, yo, we ain't having none of this right now. And I could kind of understand where Naruto came from in the manga. It's like, look, I brought you into my house. I told you multiple times, I'm not trying to harm you, and you still wilding out like this. Let me remind you who's boss. And so the reason why I'm okay with it is in the anime, they took a slightly different approach. So in the manga, they kind of teased at it for a little bit and said like, hey, you know, Naruto used to be a Jinchuriki. Naruto doesn't want to actually make him feel like he's being oppressed and kept into a cage. Naruto can relate to it. And so what they did is they took that line in the manga and they essentially just built it up on steroids. And that's why I was kind of okay with it, because, you know, they're trying to show you in a very subtle way the huge differences between Naruto and Jigen. And that's something I've been talking about in some of my manga discussion videos, which is the fact that you're seeing the tale of two fathers. And that's actually a video that I'm gonna be working on over the course of the next couple of weeks, but you're seeing the tale of two fathers between Naruto and Jigen. And it's one of those things to where if Naruto shows that brunt display of force like that, in Kawaki's eyes, to a certain extent, he's no different than Jigen in that retrospect right there. And so by showing this kinder approach right here, you're seeing a different side of Naruto, and Kawaki is seeing a different side of Naruto. And I think that that's why that works right there. So I'm okay with it. You know, people saying, oh, they need to stick 100% to the source material. I'm the first one that says, hey, why don't you stick to the source material? But I'm also the first one to tell you like, hey, when you look at the Naruto and Naruto Shippuden anime, they added a bunch of shit during their manga adaptation episodes that weren't actually in there. And me being a purist, that was kind of the reason why I didn't really just gravitate towards both Naruto animes, because I noticed small changes in how they changed stuff to fit into the anime canon. And what I tend to find is that a lot of fans hadn't actually read the Naruto manga. A lot of that stuff right there kind of went on people's heads. So with Boruto, it's a little different because a lot of people realize that like Boruto's story is something that you have to read the manga for, because the manga is so far ahead. I say that to say I'm at the point now to where I look at the small changes they make and I kind of just roll with it. Unless it's something super major, I'm not gonna flip out over it. So Now that we kind of got like the huge controversy out the way, let's kind of backtrack a little bit and look at some of the key parts of this episode. So hands down, I think one of the biggest moments is during the Five Kage summit. And what I like here is the fact that even though there's unanimous consent, if you look at what Chojuro and if you look at what Kurosuke, the Tsuchikage, were doing, they essentially said, how are you going to keep up with all this? How are you going to be able to keep up with Kawaki and carry out your day-to-day activities? You actually get a moment where Chojuro is actually looking at Naruto with a side eye. If you go back to when Naruto says, I'm going to keep him under my supervision, Chojuro hit this dude with the side eye. And what you have to remember that during this time, before all this stuff took place, the events of the Shikamaru Shinden novel took place. And so the Mizukage and Chojuro, they've got good favor with Naruto, but they're not above actually questioning him. And so once you start looking at that information and you look at what you have here, and they basically tell you that Kawaki's body is filled with nano-sized ninja tech that's very similar to what Konoha's doing. That was the reason for the last Five Kage summit that took place in that Shikamaru novel. So I believe it was Darui that looks over at Naruto and says, your son has these same capabilities. If you're familiar with what's going on in the manga, you know why they say, hey, you know, we don't know everything that this karma ability that Boruto has. We don't know the full details of it. We don't know if there's going to be any problem with Boruto and Kawaki interacting. It's going to make this upcoming Five Kage summon in the manga so damn juicy. It's gonna make it so juicy because it's a follow-up to what you got here. So very good timing right there. But what I will say is that I thought the way that the Five Kage were used in this episode, it was done very well. And I like how, you know, Shikamaru was kind of counting on that conflict. But you know, what you're seeing right here is you're seeing two sides of Naruto. You're seeing the understanding side of Naruto, but you're also seeing what happens when you have a character that is the strongest ninja on the planet, okay? And so when there's a situation like this, Naruto for 15 years, 16 years, has been used to being the strongest person on the planet. And so for Naruto, he says like, yo, I will keep Kawaki and I'm not going to let anything happen. Who's gonna show up to Konoha wanting smoke with me? Imagine they come to Konoha and they're looking for Kawaki and the kid's living in my house under my roof, eating my wife's cooking, eating my leftover bowls of instant ramen, and they pull up to Konoha wanting to smoke, and then all of a sudden they see the QB avatar and they see a perfect Susanoo. Them boys don't want no smoke. Them boys got asthma. They need ventilators and all type of stuff when they see that. We ain't gotta worry about it. That's where you see a little bit of the arrogance, and that arrogance is well deserved because Naruto technically earned the power that he has. And yet at the same time, that just shows you what happens when you get overconfident. So I like that. That's not necessarily a critique of Naruto, that's just calling it down the middle. I'm not gonna slurp the ramen noodle doodle of Naruto Jesus. I don't care if it's Easter. I don't care if it's Easter. I don't care if Naruto brought Might Guy back from the dead. Don't really give a damn. But what I will say though is kind of moving on is I thought that it was kind of cool how you kind of get the closure with Konohamaru and Mujino, and now we know where Konohamaru's been the whole time in the manga. Konohamaru's been grieving because Mujino is dead and he's seeing the photograph of the dead third Hokage and he's been taking care of that turtle. That's where Konohamaru's been this whole time. We can take all the memes away about Konohamaru being on the milk carton. There's a good reason why we haven't seen Konohamaru in the manga at this point. He's been taking care of the turtle. He's a responsible pet owner. You know, moving on to one other aspect though, I will say that I thought it was kind of cool how they kind of mixed in the actual flashbacks to, you know, really just kind of give the audience a little bit more closure with Mujino. And I feel like what they're trying to do is, you know, even though Mujino's room was empty, by having Boruto share all of those memories and flashbacks with the audience, what it's showing you is that even though the room is empty, Mujino made so much of an impact on Boruto and Konohamaru that despite there being nothing there, that entire space was filled up with love for Mujino. So I got what they were doing symbolically. That's one of the benefits of having worked as a editorial assistant for a publisher. It's like, I'm gonna see some of the stuff that's actually done, and I'm gonna understand what they're doing literary-wise when it comes to actual writing. Whether or not it's executed the best is a different discussion, but you know, that's part of what I bring here to these reviews, is I'm gonna look at things from a slightly different perspective than what you guys are used to. So moving on to one other aspect of this episode is, I also thought it was kind of interesting how, you know, Kawaki thinks it's a bright idea. I'm going to run away from the strongest shinobi on the planet, a guy who can run across several countries in the span of a few moments, like we saw when Naruto and Sasuke ran across 2 whole countries back to the Land of Fire in order to have their final battle. This is after they took all those shots from Kaguya. They still ran across several countries in a matter of moments. And so Kawaki thinks, yo, I can run away from this guy. Doesn't happen, and you get this really cool moment to where, you know, Kawaki's seeing firsthand for the second time, which Naruto acknowledged, that Naruto is nothing to play with. Naruto says, I might not look like it, but I'm pretty strong, dude. I'm the leader of the village. Kawaki tries to escape, and he's arrogant enough to think that he can escape, and he kind of gives into it once after running from Naruto twice. He's not actually able to escape from Naruto's presence, and I thought that was kind of interesting right there. And I like how as they get home and after Kawaki and Boruto kind of have their back and forth, you know, you have this moment to where Naruto looks over at Boruto and he's using a shadow clone to do it, and he says like, look man, you know, I was born with a lot of power, and as an adult now I can understand why the villagers hated me. I didn't understand it back then, but I can understand why they hated me, because it was one of those situations where if I lost control, and I didn't have control, but if I lost control, I could destroy the entire town. So they had every reason to be suspicious of me. And I would like it if you didn't treat Kawaki in the same way. And the reason why that actually works with Boruto is if you go back to that versus Momoshiki arc, you know, Boruto on a couple of occasions, because Naruto's chakra was connected to him, Boruto was able to glimpse some of Naruto's memories. And so I thought that was a nice little tie back into that without actually telling you that that's what's happening. That's one of those things where prior knowledge takes place and they're not necessarily using showing in order to do it, but instead they're having Naruto's words actually be what actually resonates with Boruto. And I thought that was kind of cool. That shows some real growth on Naruto's side. Now, I will say that, you know, we got to press F in the chat for Vase-sama, because you know, Himawari's face got destroyed, and you know, with all the memes that are probably going to go around with that, I will say, you know, that vase, I mean, that's going to be a really important anchor going forward. That's why when the vase is destroyed and he sees Himawari break down into tears over it, why Kawaki can't actually look at it, it's because of that right there. It's because in a way he sees himself as that broken vase. What they're also showing you is that even though he's a part of their lives, even though he's living with Naruto and them, because he hasn't actually grown up in an environment like that, there's still some distance there. And that's something that the manga is very subtly hinting, and that's something the manga is very subtly hinting at right now. So overall, like I said, this is an okay episode. By Boruto standards, I give this episode probably a 6.5, maybe 7 out of 10. Like I said, by Boruto standards, I will give it that. But you know, like I said, overall, it was a cool episode to check out. So my episode question for you guys is going to be, do you guys agree that Naruto made the right decision to have Kawaki live with him in the village? And the second question I have for you guys is, how do you feel about them cutting Naruto's scene out where Naruto powers up at the dinner table? Let me know down in the comment section below. But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.